We're good? We don't have Vince. Still missing him? Still hasn't shown up? Okay.
He's kind of a fly by the seat of your pants guy.
He is a little bit of that.
Right.
Yeah. Oh God, that would be, and I think Kate can attest to this. It was all our first time meeting Vince when we did our pre-call, and we all kind of walked away from it going, wow, he's everything that you'd think Meow Wolf would be, right?
He was moving, he was walking, he was running from thing to thing. Yeah, he's very on brand.
Right, right. So he's probably on his way to this in a moment. But for the sake of time, should we just get going? I'm getting a nod, yes. Okay. Kate, it's all about you.
I am definitely not holding the floor for an hour here, Aaron. So
well, we'll do our best. We'll do our best collectively.
Joking.
It'll be great. I love the Endless Coast up. That's sweet.
Is it backwards for you guys, or is it?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
I'm not used to Zoom.
There's sample cans here. We've got other stuff. We don't have real product. As you know, we're not there yet in Minnesota, but hopefully soon. Okay, so let's do a little background on Think and Link and why. If you're first timers to this event, we started this in our kitchen back in the North Loop. We wanted to have interesting conversations. We had our first one and Judy Bell came to it and she said, that was kind of like a French style salon. And I went, what's a French style salon? And I'm like, ooh, that's cool. So it became this French style salon conversation. And then it grew and we got speakers, and all of a sudden, by the time this thing, a pandemic showed up, we had a standing room only. Allie was one of our speakers at one point in time. We'd have an amazing number of speakers in that kitchen. And then we went digital. And then we got bored and we wanted to go back. And then we landed here and we said, let's do this in person. Let's have a conversation. So we do this once a month. And if you got on the invite list and found your way on there, good luck finding it again, because we're tricky about that. We're very tricky. I don't know how, but somehow we'll get to you, hopefully. Ooh.
I'm just glad to see that everybody is wearing pants, because you forgot to mention there was a period of time when pants were optional.
I'm not supposed to talk about that anymore. Because of the lawsuit, I can't talk about that. No, that's funny. It was our copywriter who said, well, 2020, maybe we call it Think and Link pants optional. Like, yeah, that's about it. So we did a pants optional. And then we had Kathy Ireland on, and I was out biking with a friend. He's like, dude, I'm doing that one pants optional. I'm like, no, now we have to change the name. So we don't do that anymore. Try to be a little bit more appropriate.
I feel like that could be a column.
No, I'm not doing the pants optional column. Okay, Kate, I'd like to have you introduce yourself to our audience, give a little bit of background, how you got here, and then we're going to talk about all things cannabis. And when Vince shows up, he will insert himself. Oh, wow.
Looks like he's here.
Is that not perfect timing?
Right on cue.
Right out of the refrigerator, he shows up. Can we hear him? Yes.
Hello.
Okay, Vince, for showing up late, you have to go second. So Kate's going to introduce herself first.
Fair.
Take it away, Kate.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Lynch. I'm the Executive Vice President of Marketing at Curaleaf. I've been at Curaleaf for just over 4 years and cannabis for just over 8.5, which is about 20 years in normal time. Got into the space somewhat haphazardly through a former boss of mine. I was in outdoor retail beforehand. I've been in marketing for quite some time and was lucky enough to get a phone call to ask to help write some medical cannabis licenses applications. So been doing this for a while, very, very blessed. Curaleaf is a really exciting company to work for in a very exciting industry. And I had the pleasure of meeting Aaron about, I guess it was 2 years ago through a connection of mine, and we've been doing work ever since. So happy to be here today.
Thank you, Kate. That was wonderful. I made one small mistake. I forgot to introduce my co-host.
That's okay. It's your show.
You're like, I'm
just here to tell everyone you're really smart.
Oh, stop it. She's my boss.
Right.
Yeah, I write a column and she makes sure it looks smart and sounds smart. This is Allie Kaplan. For those of you who don't know, Twin Cities Business Magazine, editor, very famous here in town. Big deal, really big deal. And she's a journalist, pure and pure, a journalist. So Kate, she'll have a lot of questions for you about cannabis. So we've been trying to figure that out in Minnesota. So anyway.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Okay, Vince, let's get some background on you. Fill our audience in.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Vince Kadlubek. I'm one of the co-founders of Meow Wolf. We're based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we build these large-scale, immersive, multimedia storytelling experiences. We have one in Santa Fe, one in Vegas, and one in Denver. About to open one in Dallas this summer. And like we really came from a purely artistic background, hardly any sort of business experience at all. And I think as artists, we were really, trying to shake up the structure of culture, generally speaking, and so with that, like, we've been influenced and inspired by psychedelics, by altered consciousness, and we express that through our work. And we see art, and immersive art especially, as being an access point to altered consciousness with or without substances. And so, like, that's kind of where, I'm primarily interested, is just like how one accesses the imagination, the structures of identity that keep us from accessing the imagination, and how to dissolve those structures of identity in all sorts of different ways: technologies, substances, experiences, etc.
Dissolving those structures of imagination, structures of
identity.
Structures of identity that
Yeah,
keep you from imagination. Damn. That was good. Do you want to ask the first question?
Well, let's talk a little bit, Vince, about your origin story and where this adventure started for you.
It's pinpointing it. I mean, like, the adventure of, the adventure started honestly when I was like 5 or 6 years old and went to Disneyland and rode Pirates of the Caribbean for the first time, and was sort of instinctively just like in love with that experience and wanted to go back over and over and over again. And didn't really know what that was because I was 6 years old, but I had this like drive towards that. And then I would say, like, later in my teenage years and early adulthood, listening to Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell late at night. And my favorite guest was Terence McKenna, philosopher and researcher, archaeologist, who talked a lot about the significance of the imagination, and how the imagination is not just some random playful thing that happens every now and then. We make art and whatever, but that it's actually like the dimension beyond time and space, and that it's like the fifth world, as referenced by the indigenous cultures around the world. This idea that there's a space beyond the reality that we live in, and that it's accessed, it's experienced through imagination and the expression of imagination, which we know as art and creativity. So I got really obsessed with art and creativity at that point. And it's kind of like doing like experimental theater, weird theater, troupe stuff, my early 20s, experimenting with LSD and psilocybin quite often, and THC, and creating works of art with friends, that were derived from altered states of consciousness. And then that kind of became Meow Wolf, honestly. Like, we became a more formalized social group that was renting a warehouse here in Santa Fe, New Mexico back in 2008, and digging materials out of dumpsters in order to make the work that we wanted to make, and we did that for a good 6 or 7 years as a group. And that transitioned then into our first permanent exhibition called the House of Eternal Return, where we actually raised money and formed a business and hired people and paid artists for their work and opened that exhibition in 2016. Since then, it's been all about how we scale this as a business and how we stabilize this as a business. So in like a really rapid time, that's kind of like the trajectory.
I love that. Kate, the origin story of Curaleaf, because a lot of these people don't know that you are the biggest brand in cannabis and probably the biggest secret in cannabis, which is probably not what you want to be, entirely a secret, but it is interesting. So can you give me the origin story of Curaleaf?
Sure. Yeah, I wish I was there for day one, but shortly thereafter, I was fortunate enough to join. But Curaleaf was founded over a decade ago as a medical device company, and then quickly morphed into medical cannabis, opening their first dispensary in New Jersey in 2015. And have since evolved since then to 147 dispensaries across the US and 9 countries, beyond that. So we're vertically integrated in every state that we operate, which means that we essentially grow, manufacture, and distribute products in each individual state. What's tricky about that, especially from a marketing perspective, is every state has different regulations. And Aaron, you know this very well, and so does your team, which means we essentially have to launch a national campaign, but version it for every single state that we operate in. But I'm very fortunate. We're a global cannabis company that's thriving and, and trying to change the stigma and bring cannabis to people that need it and, offer accessible, high quality products and bring new people into the space that wouldn't otherwise consider cannabis as an, alternative solution to what they may be looking for. We were founded as a health and wellness company. We continue to, remain rooted in that, but we are also offering products which we can get into that bring consumers in that may be, using other products that are not necessarily health and wellness based, but we often consider cannabis as a healthier option for many other things out there.
Love that. Also breaking down the structure of identity through consumption of cannabis in a nice way, right?
Back to you, Vince. Continuing with your origin story, what about the name? When and had you had any Curaleaf products when you decided to name it Meow Wolf?
Well, when we named it Meow Wolf, it was 2008, and I had friends getting arrested and jailed for possessing marijuana at the time. Unfortunately, we got together, committed to renting a warehouse and pitching in $100 a month each. And then at the end of that meeting, we said, well, we need to have a name. And so we decided to put a bunch of words in one hat and then a bunch of words in another hat. And we were pretty stoned at this time, I imagine. And we started pulling words out of hats and combining them. And Meow Wolf was the one that we all rallied around for whatever reason. And I remember leaving that meeting being like, shaking my head and being like, what are we doing here? But yeah, that's where the name came from.
Was it 2 separate words on 2 separate cards, or was that one card?
Yeah, no, 2 separate words on 2 separate cards that like matched up. And we said, oh, that one, and so we voted. We had a bunch of other candidates like the Vibe Hut or like I Ship and Wolf Palace. We had a bunch of other like 2-word combinations, but Meow Wolf was the one that everybody voted for.
Yeah, Capsule's now doing naming that way. From
Couldn't you create like an out of the hat
naming
package?
process? Yeah, out of the hat package. It's really inexpensive. Bunch of words over here, bunch of words over there, and you just have to be okay with whatever comes out.
There you go.
Yeah, it's kind of random in that way anyway. Kate, we've had speakers in the past talk about word of mouth marketing. And I should note, and our audience should know this, both in the streaming world that we're streaming this to, but also locally. Marketing in cannabis is probably the hardest thing you can possibly do on the planet because of all the regulations and all the stuff going on. So Kate, you talk a lot about word of mouth. How do you facilitate that? What do you do to help that happen with your brands?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll qualify that by saying when I got into this space, marketing was actually extremely easy because if you had product and you had a shelf, you could sell it. That has since evolved and it's become far more competitive. But if you have high quality products that people want, it's easy to sell if you're in one market or one store. But when you're in multiple markets across the country, like we are, it does become very difficult because every state, like I said, has different regulations. And frankly, the major mass marketing channels are not necessarily cannabis friendly. You may have seen 3 weeks ago, Twitter finally allowed cannabis advertising, which is very exciting for our industry. And we took advantage of that immediately, but there's a lot of regulations around what you can and you can't do on those channels. So all that to say that our largest lead source into our stores is word of mouth. Cannabis is scary to many people. A lot of people don't quite know what it is that we do and what it is that we sell, what they need, how they get it. So their friends and families are generally the first source of information for them. So we typically, in our medical markets, we operate in a handful of medical markets. We start with the physicians, those that prescribe cards to patients to be able to access cannabis. So that is our first sort of source of networking so that we can educate physicians to be able to educate patients to come and buy product. In our adult use markets, we reach out to our customers and friends and family, and we leverage influencer networks because those are the easiest, channels to get people to trust what we do and to spread the word. We're getting more into digital marketing and traditional channels that allow us, but word of mouth is definitely the easiest and best lead source for us because there's no better way to learn about cannabis and trust cannabis from your trusted friends and family.
I love that. And it's true. It's hard to get people past that barrier. It's got so much stigma and so much history of that you have to overcome and then get people to trust the quality and all the other stuff that comes with it. Vince, one for you, this transformative experience that you talk about. And the reason you're here is because Joe Pine was here 2 months ago. And I said, God, I'd love to have Meow Wolf on the stage. And he's like, sure, I'll get you that. And you were in my email in like a day. It was amazing. The fridge door. Tell our audience about the fridge door or that part of the experience if you haven't had it.
Yeah, so in Santa Fe, at the Santa Fe exhibition at the House of Eternal Return, we've created a 2-story Victorian house that has been lived in by a family, and you experience their house. You walk into their house and you explore their entire lives. You go through their living room, their dining room. You go upstairs into their bedroom. You go through their drawers and go through their clothes and read their journal and watch their home movies. It's like fully realized Victorian house. And there's a moment where you get to the kitchen and you walk to the fridge and open the fridge door, and instead of there being food in there, it's a long lit hallway into who knows where, into the unknown. And it's sort of a portal that breaks that facade of reality and starts to invite you into the realm of possibility. And it's a very powerful moment. I mean, it's been shared a bunch on social media and on Instagram and on TikTok, and people talk about it. It's iconic. And so it's striking a nerve for the general population. I oftentimes joke that one of the things that we've learned is that people desperately want to walk through their household appliances. But digging in deeper, what's going on there? Why are people so excited to walk through a refrigerator? What is that all about? And it really is, for me, that's the transformational moment. Joe Pine talks about the transformation economy, and the transformation economy is an evolution from the experience economy. You want to have transformative experiences. That's what you're willing to pay for these days, is something that's going to literally shift the nature of reality for you. And at that moment of the fridge, it's you are immersed in a world that is known. There's you're in a known kitchen, in a known house. It all looks like the known reality. And so all of your brain is in a realm of knowing, and things are as they should be. And when you open the fridge and realize that it's more than just a fridge, there's like this moment that also gets you thinking about the world potentially being more than what the world is supposed to be. Like, if the fridge can be more than what the fridge is supposed to be, then the world can be more than what the world is supposed to be. And then even more powerfully, like, if the fridge is more than what the fridge is supposed to be, then maybe like I can be more than what I'm supposed to be. And this strikes right at that comment I said at the beginning, which is dissolving the structure of identity. Like, our identities are the greatest infrastructure of knowing that we experience. Like, our identities tell us what our name is, what we like to eat, where we like to go shopping, where we like to go on trips, what kind of friends we like to hang out with, how we talk. Like, our identities define the entire experience of reality for us and make it all known. And by dissolving that, you open yourself up to the unknown. And it's within the unknown where exploration and discovery can happen. Because exploration and discovery doesn't happen within the context of the known, because you've already explored it and you've already discovered it and now you know it. So in order to get that feeling of exploration and discovery in your life, you have to step into a realm of the unknown. And it's very rare for adults to do that. Like, adults have basically trained themselves to stay within the known parameters. And that's where all sorts of weird midlife crises happen. That's where depression happens. That's where anxiety happens. That's where, like, feeling dead inside happens. Like, we want to feel like kids again. And the way we do that is by dissolving the structure of our identity and stepping out of our known selves and stepping into the unknown.
I'm never going to look into my refrigerator the same again. That's amazing. You mentioned transformative experiences, Vince, and that's sort of the theme of the day. So, Kate, obviously you also are delivering experiences, some of them transformative. I'm curious, given that you sell a product that delivers experiences, how does that factor into your retail, and when you think about dispensaries and kind of the physical experience that you deliver to customers, how does experience play into that, and how will it play into it going forward?
I think going forward is probably the more important part. I think what's transformative about what we're doing is we're providing accessible quality cannabis to people who need it and want it. We're not quite there with, I mean, it's hard to follow from Vince from that story, because we're not there yet, right? We're literally just opening up doors and letting people come in and learn about quality cannabis and access that. Now, that being said, we are in the process of building some flagship stores that have consumption experiences, which is a brand new thing being licensed in some states where you can actually consume cannabis on site, much like you would in a bar. But we're not quite there yet. What we're majorly focused on is providing very comfortable stores where people, from patients all the way to cannabis connoisseurs that we call them, that have been using cannabis for many, many years, feel comfortable coming in and offering them the products that they're looking for, which, by the way, has definitely transformed over the years. Flower, smokable product, was 80-90% of the category 8 years ago when I started in this industry 9 years ago. Today, it's about 60%. Now we're offering a lot of, infused products, edibles, beverages, other products that would bring new consumers into the space if they're not comfortable smoking a joint or a vape product, and they're more comfortable eating or sipping a low potency product. We're offering that to bring new consumers into the space. So I would say that's more transformative than anything, is just providing these quality products to people that may or may not be looking for them. Fast forward a year when I'm back on this stage with you guys again, and I'll talk to you about transformative retail.
Yeah, and just to
anytime
to jump off of that too, like, the invitation, like creating a safe, accessible space for people to make a choice that's outside of they normally would do, that by itself is like huge in the transformational process. You know, like the destigmatizing that Kate's talking about, the work that Curaleaf's doing, the products that are available that make that entry that more easy, because you're not just throwing people into the unknown. Like you have to provide an invitation and an environment where they're choosing to go into it. And you know, in any transformational process, like if it's therapy, if it's a big 2 weeks in nature, or like all of transformational processes start with somebody having to make the choice for themselves. And so I just wanted to just, you know, sort of double down a bit on what Kate's saying, where it's like, you don't need to build an immersive experience and build like a fridge that people walk through. Like it's about kind of extending your invitation, creating a safe environment that then can extend them into a space that they normally would reject.
And I'll piggyback off that for a second, but I do want to talk to you, Vince, offline about fridges you can walk through, because I think that would be a killer experience within our
Yes, I was just thinking that on the second entrance, fridge door.
I just wanted to say, when I started, you know, when I got the phone call, hey, Kate, you want to come help us out? It's medical cannabis. I'm like, what are you even talking about, medical cannabis? Just so this group is aware, my birthday's 4/20, and that is the only thing that made me credible in this space when I started. Still the only thing that makes me credible in this space. But when I thought about calling my friends and my family to tell them what my job was, I like paused. I'm like, I'm gonna be stigmatized, you know, and the more and more I spoke about what I did, and the more and more people I talked to, the more and more people came out and said, hey, could you help me out? Or I'm curious about this, or could you let me talk to somebody, or can you bring me some product? And all these people started coming out of the woodwork saying, I think I might be able to benefit from that. And to me, to Vince's point, that was very transformative for me, because for a industry and a product that I was nervous to get into, I all of a sudden opened up this door for all these people to feel comfortable talking to me about it, which I thought was pretty cool. And literally today I had the same exact conversation. And it makes me feel really blessed to be able to be in an industry that can help people out like that.
Love that. And yes, to be clear, if you want to come back, because you know, since we started working with you, I've been stalking you to get you on this stage, and you finally broke down and said yes. So again, we could do it next week, as far as I'm concerned. Is it my turn? Yes. Each of your question or your definition of creativity. What do you think creativity is, and what inspires creativity? Kate, you want to go first?
No, I definitely want to.
Wouldn't either.
I try to look at creativity as, you know, at its most basic level, which is to create. Creativity is not exclusively having a weird thought. Like you have to actually create the thought, you know. So creativity is once something has been created, that's creativity. And you know, I think that like we also oftentimes sort of pigeonhole creativity in this, like it has to be art, or it has to be colorful, or it has to be outside the box thinking. Creativity is really just the process of imagining something and then creating it, making it happen. And when you look at it through that lens, the scale of creativity over the last 10,000 years has been insane. Like look around you right now. Like what in the room that you're in was not first thought of and then created. It's like we're surrounded by creativity right now. And you know, so yeah, so what inspires creativity? The imagination does. Like our ability as humans, as conscious humans, to envision, like what is that envisioning? Where is that happening? What is that? Like that's a part of the brain that had been almost exclusively reserved for memory, for past-based thinking. for past-based definition. So memory is what that part of our brain was used for. And now we're using it for future-based thinking. So envisioning, using our brain instead of thinking about a past, it's thinking about the future and how, and what do I want to create in the future, and then doing it. And so, that's kind of and the thing about the identity, again, going to like why the dissolution of the identity is so key to accessing creativity, is that the identity itself is a memory-based thing. It's a past-based thing. I am who I have been. My identity, Vince, is all the things that I did leading up to this moment. So it's all past-based. And so dissolving that identity then allows you to change it from I am who I have been to I am who I am becoming. And so you then transition into being a future-based being rather than a past-based being. And that's where creativity lives.
Dude. Yeah. Yeah. Round of applause. Can someone hashtag dissolution of identity for me? Because, Kate, what do you think?
Tough act to follow. What I would say is,
You just say ditto.
I would say ditto.
That's what I was going to say.
Creativity in cannabis is really interesting when you're in a regulated business like I am in. I would say creativity in its truest sense, and I just came out of a creative session with my team for the last 2 days, is being very comfortable and open-minded and breaking down what you already know. And I think that's kind of what Vince was saying about like what was versus what could be. And it's brainstorming how you can take something that is scary or illegal, which for those of you who don't know, cannabis is still federally illegal. It's only state regulated, and making it feel accessible and comfortable. So that's like the creativity. The other side of it is dealing with the compliance and the regulators. And it's like, how do we get creative about educating and exciting people about cannabis when you can't actually really talk about it? You can't say this could help with sleep, or this could help with pain, or this could help with anxiety. None of that is possible in the world that we live in. So we have to be very creative with our compliance partners to say, how can we educate our consumers and our prospective consumers on a product that they very well might want or need without breaking the law? So there's like the fun creative and the creative we do with the capsule team, which is my favorite part of it. And then there's the creative ways around working to remain compliant, so that we can do what we do.
Hey, Vince. What is your God particle?
The God particle. Well, the God particle is an interesting term, because, there's the God molecule, there's the spirit molecule, which is, referenced in its documentary about DMT and NDMT. And then there's reference to the God molecule, which is a reference to the 5-MeO DMT, which is the Bufo alvaris frog, which is the toad venom. It's the toad venom inside of the Bufo alvaris toad, which is the most potent and like most transformative psychedelic experience on this planet. I mean, and so when you say that, I think about my Bufo alvaris experiences, my 5-MeO DMT experiences, and what is it that you experience there? The God molecule is isness. It's the entirety of beingness without the narratives that we attach to it, without the meaning that we attach to it, without the narrative. So in a place of full acceptance for my entire self, including the self that was here before I was born, and the self that was here, that will be here after I die. So it's isness, I guess, is my answer. It's a good question. It's a tough one.
Okay. Oh, amazing. Okay. We are going to turn to the audience in a moment, but I have one more question. because Kate is hinting at the fact that we've worked together, and that is the truth. We've done a lot of work together, and I'm not saying they're our favorite client, but there's a whole bunch of work on the wall of stuff we've done together, and some behind Kate currently. And I want to at least put a plug in for the seltzer water, Endless Coast, and how well that's doing, and get a little background on that. Because you've hinted at it in other conversations, other videos that I watched to prep for this. And I'm curious about how well it's doing out there in the world.
So it's all relative. I mean, it's very exciting. As I mentioned, you know, we're bringing new consumers into the space all the time. Endless Coast is a low potency, delicious light seltzer, like you would find in a convenience store on the alcohol side. Truly, your favorite seltzer. That's what Endless Coast is, but it's with THC instead. It's doing well in the sense that it's bringing new consumers into the space. So the majority of people that are buying that seltzer have never purchased cannabis before. That's very exciting for us. The challenge with ready to drink products in the cannabis space is, frankly, logistics. And that sounds very boring, but you have to store those products. You have to transport those products. We cannot transport product from one state to another. So every product we produce is produced in the state and distributed in the state. So from a logistics standpoint, it's very hard to maintain that SKU across multiple markets. But we are very encouraged by the people that are buying it and the reception towards Endless Coast. The brand is beautiful. I mean, I'm partial towards it, but it's a great brand, and it's a fun brand, and you're going to see it pop up in a couple other states. But I think beverages, especially ready to drinks, are going to be a thing of the future. We're preparing for that. But logistically, right now, it's very hard to lead with that SKU.
It is a nice introduction to the category. It's a nice way to just do a little bit, get familiar, which is that barrier, start to dissolve the identity. Your question. And do we have a microphone for the audience? Oh, perfect.
Well, I can walk it out. But let me ask this one question for this room of people here in Minneapolis, and because I always love a scoop, I want to ask both of you this. But Vince, when are you going to bring Meow Wolf to the Twin Cities? We'll start with you, right? Listen, and Kate, I realize for you it's a lot more complex, but I'm curious how you're kind of following the changes in laws and regulations here, and if Minneapolis is on your radar. So Vince, you first.
Yeah, you know, we are looking in every major market in the United States right now, basically, you know, trying to find a good situation from a real estate perspective and reaching different areas of the country. You know, we're very heavily situated in the Southwest right now. And so definitely expanding beyond the Southwest is important for us. You know, Minneapolis is the Twin Cities is a very special area in the sense that it's not like a major market, but culturally speaking and artistically speaking, it is, you know, it's a powerhouse when it comes to like arts and culture. And so, yeah, you know, we have a lot of Meow Wolf employees who are from Twin Cities, and a lot of music that has come from Twin Cities have inspired us through our youth. So yeah, you know, it's one of those places, like along with Portland and Nashville and even like Louisville, that aren't major markets, but they feel very creative, you know, and so, yeah, you know, I think we're looking in a lot of cities, and, you know, Minneapolis is definitely on that list.
And Kate, what about you?
I mean, I'll answer fairly similarly. We've got our pulse on new market opportunities all the time. That's the beauty of cannabis, or Curaleaf and cannabis, is we're constantly growing and arriving in new places where people are looking for us. I won't speak to our goals for Minnesota today, but I will say we've got 19 states that you can come visit us in, and we would love to have you.
Yeah, we just got to get open here soon. So you have a lot of reasons to come to Minneapolis. Then you could do one of these live in person. So you're here for a meeting. All right. Questions from the audience? Yes, Tim.
In the middle. There's a button, right? Like,
Push the button there. Look at that. Thank you both for being so inspiring. So all of this artificial intelligence stuff that we're hearing about that is just arriving and in theory is going to dramatically impact all of us. That kind of change, that kind of transformation, for a lot of folks is just going to happen whether they like it or not, because of Google and Microsoft will just say it's part of your life now. I'm curious how both of you would advise us to think about and welcome that kind of change, which is just going to affect literally everything that we do.
Our audience is a pain in the ass. They do really tough questions.
That's a good question. Kate, do you want to take it?
I'll start. Listen, we need to start with real intelligence around cannabis because there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of education that has to happen. That being said, I literally was in conversations this week about, how we leverage that to create content, because in every single state that we operate, as I mentioned, you have to use different language, different regulations. I mean, you say cannabis in some states, marijuana in some states, you can't say free, you can't say sale. So we are looking at opportunities to leverage that to be able to support some of our scale and variability. But right now it's about the basics, teaching people and educating people on why they might be interested in cannabis and how they should access it.
And I'm going to get very heady on this. I hope that's okay. So since the dawn of self-awareness and the dawn of art and storytelling, like back to cave paintings, we've been on this path as humans where the space between what's real and what's not real has been dissolving, has been getting thinner and thinner. And that's not going to stop. So the dichotomy, the existence of a dichotomy between real, like reality, and imaginary, that dichotomy is going to go away. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's a transition. It's a paradigm shift. And so in that paradigm shift, like as we move towards that barrier between what's real and what's not real dissolving, it's going to be really scary because we are in a paradigm that says there's real and not real. But now you have things like deep fakes, and now you have things like AI, and you're going to have immersive experiences, and you're going to have alternate reality gaming, and you're going to have things like QAnon. And we're going to start to see this question of, is it real? Is it not real? That's going to enter our lives at a rapid pace over the next 10, 15, 20 years. It already is happening. And I think that like having faith that at the completion of this paradigm shift, like once that line between what's real and what's not real is fully dissolved, that we then exist within, essentially, we exist within dream. We exist within a fully imaginative world that is both real and not real at the same time. There's no need to even define one or the other. And that could be a really beautiful world. Like that could be an amazing world. And it's really based on like whether or not that world is going to be beautiful and it's going to be magical and inspiring and enjoyable to live in is going to be based on our choices. So, and that's been the case with any medium, any paradigm shift, like television. Do we want to create beautiful experiences with television and film, or do we want to create really scary and dark and violent? And so it's up to us, like how we want that paradigm shift to go based on our own choices. So I would say anchor to love, anchor to courage and belief that we're moving in a direction for a reason, and that we have been long before we came on this earth. We've been moving this direction. And to just check yourself, like, what am I why am I creating? Why am I making choices? How am I being in the world? Like, and try to be a beautiful person and a loving person to the people around you. And hopefully more people do that, then the reality we create in this next paradigm is one that we all enjoy.
Well, that was amazing. Yeah. Okay, follow-up question over there, or we got Judy Bell.
I'll do this one right up here for.
Awesome. Thank you. Vince, I apologize. I'm not wearing my Meow Wolf socks today. I totally messed up on that one. I will say that I don't know if we polled the room. Who has been to a Meow Wolf in the room here? Okay, pretty good audience. Area 15 in Omega Mart was literally life-changing for me. So thank you. My question is kind of around, for kind of both of you, how has broader legalization affected the business of Meow Wolf as far as you're building a psychedelic fun house and now legalization is making these types of spaces and experiences more publicly acceptable? And maybe that's also a question for Kate about just stigma. So yeah, so Vince, kind of thinking of how has that changed Meow Wolf's or affected Meow Wolf's business? And then thinking too about, I think when I was at Omega Mart, I was more or less patted down for cannabis substances. So you try to keep it also family friendly. So I'm really interested in how do you play that balance to your demographics, I guess, and how has legalization affected that?
Yeah, you know, that you bring up a lot there. I mean, I think that like the stigma is still the stigma, you know, and there's still a lot of work to do to move beyond that stigma, you know, largely using science and data, you know, continuing to go back to science and data, and that stigma is totally made up. And, you know, honestly, we've been fighting the stigma for 3,000 years. I don't know if y'all have read The Immortality Key. It's a great book that kind of dates the criminalization of psychedelic substances all the way back to like ancient Greece. And, you know, I think we're in the midst of that fight. And even at Meow Wolf, like we still have these conversations of like, you know, how do we view marijuana, for instance, in cities like Denver? Like we're in Denver, we're in Vegas, you know, like how do we view marijuana? And, you know, I think it takes extra training for your operational staff to be able to manage the reality of the situation, which is that people are altered inside of these spaces, whether we like it or not. And to be able to have like real solid training programs that understands altered consciousness and how to manage people whose consciousnesses are altered. You know, but like what we like to say is that we're a psychedelic experience, we're an altered consciousness experience without the need for substance, you know, and to be honest, I think that it's kind of redundant, like going to Meow Wolf sober because it's already a trip, you know, that's like the way that I think about it.
Great answer. Though I think there could be a collaboration between the two of you at some point in time in the future. I think everybody's thinking it, right? Judy.
Hi, this is for Vince. When you were speaking just before this last segment about creative thinking and the thinning of the veil between an idea becoming reality and that all happening, all that speeding up. Can you tell us where did that thinking come from? What was some resources, some books, anything that you've tuned into to bring you to that thinking? I want to know your secret sources, please.
Yeah. I mentioned Terence McKenna. That's been somebody that, you know, there's a lot of thought leadership in the psychedelic spaces. Honestly, though, like a lot of the thinking has come from just observation. I mean, it's just like logical observation of like for instance, I mean, graphing, you can just graph it. You can just graph it in your own head. Like how many things were created from the imagination in 10,000 BC? like in the year 10,000 BC, how many things were created from the imagination? And then like graph it all the way to like 2023. How many things are created from the imagination in the year 2023? And, you know, in that graph, you'll see this like massive spike start to happen right after the Industrial Revolution. And it's like we're obsessed with it, you know? And so a lot of it's just been sort of like backing away and observing what's happening. I honestly can't point to like a single book or something, or a single, you know, philosopher. Lots of movies point to this. I mean, lots of movies, it's like the story is a transition into the multitude of potentiality, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a good example of that. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but, you know, a lot of movies reference this thinking as well. But yeah, sorry, I can't give you a more like concrete answer.
Well, still, that was interesting. Yes.
My question is for Vince. From what I understand, I've never been to a Meow Wolf, and so you're supposed to take the substance and then you go in for experience. Is that what the whole thing is about?
No.
Or is it just you can just walk in? Okay.
No, we actually don't think that substances are even like that beneficial in a Meow Wolf, to be honest. I mean, you know, have a drink, you know.
Okay.
If you smoke weed in your car before you come in or whatever. But, you know, it's kind of like I was saying, it's kind of redundant because, you know, we're kind of creating a psychedelic experience without the need for substance. Like it's already so much that it can be like really overwhelming if you're also like inebriated. And so, yeah, so it's definitely not a prerequisite for the exhibition.
Got it. My real question was, how do you see what you're doing with Meow Wolf tap into the social justice movement globally? Like we know there are events happening in the world now that are very disturbing, but people want to raise awareness about it to the audience that live in Western countries. Like, for example, my country's almost at the brink of civil war right now, and there's a lot of injustice, and I've been reaching out to media and everything. How does what you're doing play in that role to raise awareness about things that are happening in other parts of the world? Is there some kind of a strategy? Like we know, everybody knows what happened in Iran with Masha Amini and protests and everything. Like, how does this Meow Wolf, does it see itself as a tool to raise awareness about it in a way where you go and you immerse yourself to, I don't know how you're going to do it, but do you see that happening at some point?
It's a great question. It's a very important question. Like, you know, we're what's called a benefit corporation, a B Corp. If you don't know what a benefit corporation is, it's really the future of capitalism. I think it basically identifies that social impact is a critical pillar of the bottom line, right alongside profits. And you know, we made that decision 6 years ago to be a benefit corporation. And I think that anyone who's entering into a new industry space, especially a new industry space that is focused on social good, which I think the marijuana industry is, should really consider being a benefit corporation, just to kind of put their money where their mouth is and be a certified B Corp. As part of that for us, you know, we see arts and entertainment and storytelling as a critical piece to how the world's issues or how cultural issues are expressed. And the traditional world of art, entertainment, and storytelling is so predominantly white and so predominantly like telling a certain story. And so it's really critical for us when we do exhibitions in these cities, in Denver and in Vegas, like that we're working with a true representation or an even over-indexed representation of minority voices, whether it be women or BIPOC voices, because those are the stories that, not only are they the stories that need to get out, but those are the stories that are actually interesting too. Like they're also like just much more vibrant. You know, so you know, we see ourselves as responsible as a platform for elevating women and BIPOC and LGBTQ voices.
That's great. Do we have one more question? Room for one more? Vince and Kate do have very important things to do.
From Terrence McKenna. This is for Kate, actually, but I think we have a
Excellent.
book question for Vince too. Kate, does Curaleaf have programs or discuss how to educate or engage the a lower income communities where you're based, and individuals who have kind of historically been imprisoned for the choices that are now becoming legalized? Do you take a role in that and consider how to not only help serve them, but I guess in a healing way, consider elevating them?
We do have multiple, some in the form of brand collaborations. If you get a chance, look up our Be Noble program. We partnered with Bernard Noble and Fab Five Freddy to launch a brand to recognize exactly what you're talking about. And then we partner with a lot of social equity partners in the markets that we operate to help them bring their businesses to life. It's a very important pillar of our business and our brand. So yes, we do it in multiple factors. We don't have a lot of time to go into it, but I would highly encourage you to look up Be Noble and just Curaleaf in general, because we're highly committed to CSR, social equity, and everything in between.
Love that. Yes. I think we're at time. Oh, one more question. I know, I can't help it. Vince is getting emails done anyway, so he's good. I know, I've done it.
Hi, big fans of what you both do and what your organizations do. It's a question I think that applies to both of you around psychedelics, and curious what Curaleaf maps out for the future of that. Or are you just a cannabis company, or as that expands, will you enter that as well? And to tack on that same concept for Meow Wolf, I mean, you talk about transformational experiences and without having the need for that, but as psychedelic therapy becomes more of the thing and you're a transformational organization, do you see your organization's place in that and building those bridges and safe environments?
I'll chime in quickly here. We've got a lot of work to do in just building our cannabis brands and accessibility across the country and the world. So right now we're very highly focused on high quality, safe cannabis for sure. Beyond that, I've yet to see what's to come. I'm excited for what's to come, but I'm really excited about just continuing to expand our reach and make our products more accessible and enjoyed by all.
Yeah, and my answer is sort of there's sort of two sides to it for me. There's me personally, and sort of my own personal mission as a co-founder and as somebody who speaks and can do press engagements and such. And I've really anchored to it's going to be my life's work to to proliferate the positive aspects that I've personally experienced through psychedelics and guided psychedelic treatments. It saved my life. I mean, it has saved my life on multiple occasions. I just recently got out of a pretty intense bout with anxiety as my life was shifting, and as I lost a couple friends this summer, dear friends, and it was psychedelics that pulled me out much more rapidly than I think could have been pulled out without them. So that's me personally. So I'll be speaking at the MAPS conference in Denver this year, which if y'all don't know, it's going to be quite the watershed moment for the psychedelic industry. Also, we'll be speaking in San Francisco for Bicycle Day at the Discovery Conference. And speaking alongside, folks from Johns Hopkins and Stanford and, and UNM and NYU, and these incredible studies that are coming out that show psilocybin, ketamine, MDMA as basically miracle drugs when it comes to PTSD, anxiety, depression. Where does Meow Wolf fit into that? I think we're still kind of figuring that out, you know? There is a lot of interest in neuroscience at Meow Wolf. A lot of interest in our work being created for the sake of transformation and art being an access point to transformation. So in working with neuroscience on the impact that art has on the human brain, there's a very adjacent, very like dovetailing of psychedelics. You know, but I think we're still kind of like walking that line and dealing with the stigma and wanting to make sure that we're not alienating lots of people in the world that might have a transformative experience inside of Meow Wolf because because they're carrying the stigma with them. So substances aren't for everybody, you know, that's like fundamental. Substances are not for kids. Substances are not for everybody. Like, and so I think that what we're trying to say is that the psychedelic experience is everybody, but that it's not always substances that have to be the one, be what unlocks it. So.
Well, that was a great little glimpse of the future by each of you. Thank you for that. And we have finished our hour, and this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you all for tuning in and hanging out.
Thank you, Aaron, for bringing us together and fostering such an amazing conversation.
I have a lot of good friends who are very kind and allow me to bring other people together. So, and Kate, anytime, Vince, anytime you can come back. We can pair you up with other people. You just tell us anytime. Love this. This was amazing. And hope you can all come back again for another one in a month. I don't have the announcement on the exact details because they haven't been finalized yet, but they will be very soon. And again, thank you, Kate, for being an amazing client. Capsule loves you, just so you know.
Right back at you.
Thank you both.
Thank you all.
See you.
Everybody.
Appreciate it.